I'm whatever you want me to be, baby.
Or good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us both in person and online this evening. My name is Jasper Dent. I'm one of the assistant managers here at McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. This event is being held on Treaty 6 territory. This is the land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Nakota, and Nakota. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of Nowhere by Jon Claytor, published by Goose Lane Editions. Thank you so much to Jon for being here and for working with us to make this event happen. Just to note that this event is being live streamed, so there's a web camera up to your right here. We're not filming the audience. However, if your cell phone goes off with a phone call or a tornado warning, it will live on the internet forever, so perhaps silence or turn off your phones. If you would like to buy copies of Nowhere or Jon's other book, Take the Long Way Home, you can find them on the signing table or on the desk by where you first walked in. You're welcome to get your book signed before you purchase it. We just ask that you please do remember to purchase it on your way out the door. So to introduce our author this evening, Jon Claytor is a graphic novelist, painter, and writer whose work ranges from oil painting and watercolor to comics. He's had solo exhibitions at galleries in Montreal, Toronto, Los Angeles, and throughout the Maritimes. He has written and illustrated stories for CBC Radio, Fry Festival, and the website ruralharmreduction.com. Jon Claytor co-founded SappyFest Independent Music and Arts Festival in 2006 and opened Thunder and Lightning in 2013. He holds an MFA from York University and a BFA from Mount Allison University. He was nominated for a Juno Award for the cover of Gord Downie's Battle of the Nudes in 2004. Everyone, please give him a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Jasper. Thanks for having me here. This is really fun, especially because some of the people in the audience I saw perform earlier, some experimental music, and it was really beautiful. So, where to start? I guess with Nowhere. Yeah, I'm going to read to you from a graphic novel. I love to read from this book without a projector, which is a little unusual for a graphic novelist, but I really enjoy it. And one of the perks is that you can imagine the drawings are really, really good. Yeah, I think I'll just jump into the story. So, because it is a graphic novel, I'm going to just ask for a little bit more imagination on your side. So to start with, I'd just like everyone to take a deep breath and imagine that you're a ghost. It's your first day being a ghost. You haven't quite gotten used to it yet. You're not really sure where you are. You can't see very well. And you're a little disoriented. But the place that you're going to haunt is called Beauséjour. And the person you're haunting is a 12-year-old boy named Joel. He's just arrived in Beauséjour. He's probably somebody that you really loved. He could be somebody that you hated because it works that way with ghosts. Sometimes they haunt those they love. Sometimes they haunt those they hate. I think you probably loved Joel. And to get accustomed to being in this town, Beauséjour, Joel's town where he's arrived, you'll need a guide. So I'm going to be your guide. So I'm going to take you on a tour of Beauséjour, introduce you to all the things you need to know to haunt Joel. And yeah, it's not that bad being a ghost. Don't worry about it. Okay, so come with me. So the first, we're going to check in on Joel. He's in the back seat of his parents' car. His mother's driving, stepfather's in the passenger seat, and he's a bit of a jackass, and he's kind of acting like a jackass. It's the middle of the night. They're on a midnight move. I don't know if anybody in this room's ever had to go on a midnight move, but it's when you leave your apartment as quick as possible. Your parents aren't going to pay the rent, and you're never going back. So they're on a midnight move. They don't know where they're going. They're just going down the highway. It's very dark. The car starts to smoke. Joel's in the back seat, and he's just a bit of an observer. And he's sitting back there, and he has his dog and his cat and his two turtles and a cardboard box on his lap. And his parents are kind of arguing. They're just begging this car to keep going, but it's not going to make it much further, so they have to take the next exit, which is Beauséjour. So they arrive in this small town, and first thing they have to do is find somewhere to live. And there's a housing crisis in this story, just like everywhere right now. Beauséjour is not unaffected, but they do manage to get a room in the local motel, the Beauséjour Motel, and they settle in. It's plenty big enough for them. Joel sleeps on the floor with his dog, and his parents are in the bed, and there's a desk in the corner, like all motels. So they have to acclimatize to this town. The thing that's different, and you'll get used to as you haunt Beauséjour, is it's full of monsters. There's giant rats, there's zombies, there's clowns, there's Draculas, there's all sorts of monsters. And everyone in this town sort of ignores them. They know they're there, but they just sort of ignore their presence. And so quickly sort of, Joel's family has to sort of get on board with this like acceptance of the monsters. And they have to do everything else that you have to do in a small town. So Joel's mother quickly finds a job at the local diner. Joel's stepfather has to find a local bar, and he's already found it. He's found it that night. And Joel has to enroll in school and sort of figure things out, and he's kind of responsible for himself. And so as he settles in, he has one solace. He has a sketchbook. So right now, and as ghosts, we can travel sort of through time, through walls. As I said, you can't see very well, but if you could see, you'd see Joel sitting in the corner of the motel room at the desk that every motel room has, and he's drawing in his sketchbook. And he's thinking to himself, the best way to avoid monsters of all sorts is to stay home and draw imaginary merch for my imaginary band. And he's drawing a little rocker t-shirt, and it says emotions in a Gothic font across it. And his stepfather comes up behind him and puts his hands on Joel's shoulders and leans in, and on his t-shirt says Cold Cake, which is his imaginary band. And he leans in and he says, want some advice? And Joel immediately thinks no. And he leans closer, and Joel can smell the beer breath and the heat from his breath on the side of his face. And his stepfather says, get some talent. Think anybody would want that? Emotions, no. And they both think loser. And Joel thinks if I ignore him, he'll leave. He's already kind of internalizing this negative talk, and he's written in his sketchbook, who would want this? And he's got all his band names written out, Creature Machine, Jake Sucks, Moncton Roadside Experience, Emotions, Dumb Ideas, and Money Skull. And Jake sort of stands up and says, I'm going to go work on the car like a real man. Joel thinks, good. I can't think of anything worse than being a real man. I hope I never become one. And he thinks, what did I do to deserve a Jake in my life? So that's Joel working in his sketchbook. And now we're going to go to therapy, because that was a little sad. So in this town full of monsters, the monsters have lives, they have jobs, they do things, they have emotions, and they go to therapy. So right now we're in the therapist's office, and this therapist, she makes a really good business dealing with monsters, like many therapists. And in the nice comfortable chair in the therapist's office is a Dracula. And he says, sure, doc, it's obvious. I'm not a man, I'm a monster. Some call it a destiny or a calling, as if it's anything so special. Truth is, it's simply the job I was born to do, the reason I exist. I came by it easy, doc. You could say my father is a monster. My mother is a monster. My sisters are monsters. Even my friends are monsters. And the therapist says, what about your brother Calvin? He's not a monster. Worse, says the Dracula. He works in public relations. It makes me so depressed. Let it out, says the therapist. Or maybe I'm just hungry, says the Dracula. And the therapist says, maybe it's more complicated than that, but you're making progress. I know it's not easy. Do you remember HALT? H-A-L-T. Ask yourself if you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired before you bite. If you've ever suggested that a Dracula use HALT, they get angry. And this Dracula says, but I'm always hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. Especially hungry, especially angry, especially lonely, and especially tired. So that's therapy that Dracula's working on himself. Meanwhile, in the diner, you'll need to know about the local diner if you do any haunting in Beauséjour. Joel's mother's found a job, and we're outside the diner. The red neon is reflecting on the brick wall. There's some apartments above the diner, and you can see a swamp monster looking out the window. That's where he lives. He's not in therapy. And you can hear voices inside. Somebody's saying, Molly, that's Joel's mother. Can you get me another refill? And somebody else is saying, can you believe this shit? And as we move into the diner, it's packed. It's one of these small towns where the diner's busy from 6 in the morning until midnight. And there's sort of a king jackass holding court in the diner. And he's got a little group of people listening. And he's saying, all these disappearances, fake, fake, fake. It's all fake. And beside him, somebody's thinking, do you hear him? He's such a take charge kind of guy. And on the other side, somebody is too shy to say it out loud. Who cares, loudmouth? And I think the waitress likes me. Meanwhile, Molly, Joel's mother, and Enid, another waitress, are in the back having a cigarette break. And Molly says, I just want to spit in their food or throw a drink in their face or poison, just a little poison in their coffee. You know what I mean, Enid? I just kind of want to kill some of them. Just some, though, right, Molly? Yeah, just some, says Molly. They don't all deserve to die. I just want to torture the rest. I don't know if anybody's been a bartender in this room or a barista. Enid says, Jesus, Molly, but honestly, I kind of agree with you. Right, says Molly. But you'd never, says Enid. Why? Do I look like a murderer? Says Molly. I mean, kinda, a little. Well, then you better be nice to me, Enid. Because I'm serious. Dead serious. Just listen to those jerkwads out there. And you can hear everybody in the diner just talking really loud, and it's all lies, 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 rumors, 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 sex, sex, sex. And two friends are sitting in one of the booths, and one is reading the paper. He says, my God, there's been more disappearances. Did you read this? And his other friend leans over. His eyes are a little red and his teeth are a little long. And he says, oh, really? And that's the diner. So moving through Beauséjour you'll need to know that Joel does make a friend. Joel makes a friend named Charlie. Charlie is a little bit taller than Joel, long hair, very thin, and she's obsessed with ghosts. And Joel and Charlie would walk home together every day after school. And Beauséjour is the kind of town you can walk fully around in about an hour. Like, that's the size of Beauséjour. The main thing they had in common was not wanting to go home. So they always took the long way, postponing the inevitable reality of their lives, laughing and walking the perimeter of the cage they called Beauséjour. And Charlie asks Joel a question. Charlie says, Joel, can I ask you something? And Joel says, that question always makes me nervous. It's the worst question. What are they going to ask? We don't know. It's horrible. And Charlie says, do you believe in ghosts? I don't not believe in them, says Joel. I mean, I want to believe, but you've never seen one, says Charlie. No, says Joel, I wish. And Charlie says, I have. I mean, I do. There seem to be more of them every year. And as we go through Beauséjour, you'll see, as Charlie says, they aren't in the creepy places you would expect. And if we go to the cemetery, there's no ghosts in the cemetery. But if you go by the bars, there's lots of ghosts. They're here, there, and everywhere, says Charlie. I want to meet one, says Joel, but I hope we aren't ghosts. Me too, says Charlie. And don't be offended, when you were alive, you also did not want to be a ghost. So moving through the town, like I said, Joel has a sketchbook, but there's also a movie theater. And the movie theater in Beauséjour is not unlike the one here. It's an older theater. It's called the Paradise Cinema. And we're in front of the theater now. It's an Art Deco theater. On the marquee where it says Paradise Cinema, it also says that The Fly and Maximum Overdrive are playing. And 3 zombies are stumbling by. And as we move inside, straight through the wall, because we're ghosts and you're going to enjoy doing that as you develop your ghostly skills, Joel's in the shadows, sort of sneaking through the theater. Because whenever his parents went on a date, it was Joel who went to the movies. Soon he was sneaking in whenever he could. It felt dangerous and safe at the same time. He'd sneak right past the manager and never get caught. But of course, nothing got by Dave. Dave's the manager. He was a good guy who was a bit of a ghost himself. And now Joel's sitting in the theater, the light of the projector flickering behind him, and the theater's full. For Joel, the movies were a lifesaver. On Friday nights, the entire town would show up. At least they used to. They experienced a lot together in the dark of the paradise. Crushes held hands, rowdy teens cracked jokes. Families, friends, and the lonely sat side by side as creatures from beyond and terrible monsters invaded the screen. This was everyone's escape from boredom and reality. And now Joel's sitting in the theater and there's nobody there, just the flickering light behind him. But Joel preferred the nights when he was alone in the paradise, especially if it was a scary movie. Even though the screen often reflected the types of horrors ignored in Beauséjour, Joel found the celluloid terrors oddly comforting, and they helped him forget what real dangers were waiting outside the paradise doors. He wished he could stay there forever. But when the movies were over, Joel would slip out the back, and Dave locked up the theater, safe and sound. What you don't know about this town is, like, yes, it's full of monsters. It also has aliens. And high above this scene, in a little alien spaceship, looking down are two alien co-workers. And they're looking down at Dave locking up. And what Dave doesn't see is that he's surrounded by zombies. His moments on Earth are very limited. He's about to die. He has no idea. The zombies are getting closer. And one of the aliens looks down and turns to his coworker and says, the absolute horror of it all. And his colleague looks at him and says, first time on Earth. So that's Joel's happy place, the theater. And so as you adjust to this town, like, it might be kind of overwhelming, maybe not what you were expecting, but really, and there's the school with 3 zombies walking by. In many ways, that year was a year like any other. And there's Charlie late for school, jumping over a body in the street. And there's a wolf crossing the street with a trail of bloody footprints. Yes, sometimes the wildlife was a little close to home. And there's an alien holding a leaf with a little cute little caterpillar, but with just the brightest red eyes. There did seem to be more creepy crawlies creeping around than before. And there's a swamp creature in the swamp, full moon behind it, thinking, is there anyone out there? There was a certain loneliness in the swamp. And there's red fall leaves blowing down the street. The street is full of blood. Fall is always a little lonely, and people can get used to anything. So now take a breath. That's the town you're going to haunt, but take another breath. You're no longer a ghost. You're free to be a human being again. And that's Beauséjour. Quick question. Has anybody used the paper and pencils to draw anything? No? Okay. Feel free to. And if you're stuck with so you don't have any anxiety about what's happening next, I made a few notes, and I'm just gonna talk about drawing and art for about, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. While I do that, feel free to use the paper and pens to draw. There's no test. Nobody has to see it. If you need a prompt, I always suggest that you draw something you love. But just feel free to doodle, and nobody has to see it. But at the end, I will ask if you want to share it with me. And if you do, it will make me incredibly happy. No pressure. So all I wanted to talk about was the 3 times the drawing has saved my life. I think that part of Nowhere is about creativity and how that helps us get through different times. So the first time that drawing saved my life was really childhood, and I had a childhood where I moved a lot, and I was only child, and there was not really anybody to check my experience with, but my sketchbook, right? And I could draw in that sketchbook and kind of figure out when I thought about like what I thought was going on, and it was my constant from place to place. And there's a quote that I used to quote all the time, Joan Didion quote, where she says, "I write entirely to find out what I'm thinking," which is exactly what I was doing. But it was interesting to me when it was pointed out by my editor, actually, Bethany Gibson, that there's a lot more to that quote. So I'm going to read you the longer version. It's from one of Joan Didion's essays, where she said, "I write entirely to find out what I'm thinking, what I'm looking at, what I see, and what it means. Why did the oil refineries on the Strait seem so sinister to me in the summer of 1956? Why have the night lights in the Beaverton burned in my mind for 20 years? What is going on in these pictures in my mind?" I just thought it was really interesting that what she was actually talking about was trying to figure out, like, what were these images that were haunting her? And there's always an image that sort of haunts me, that recurs in my mind, and it's connected to a feeling, but I don't know the connection between the image and the feeling until I start to draw. And after I start to draw, I start to figure it out. This book, for example, there was a feeling of, for me, having moved so much, was this feeling of like always being a ghost in the place that I am, and that if I went back to any of these places, knowing that I lived there for such a short period of time, that nobody would remember me. And I couldn't quite think of like a name for that emotion, or even a single image, but things started to come to me, and that was really the seed of this book. Was just like, what is that feeling of being a ghost? And because I didn't have a word for it, I had to write a 450-page graphic novel about it. So that was the first time that drawing saved my life. And then as time went by, it was the only thing that I was kind of good at. And I became an artist, and I fell in love with painting. And that was, I think of that time around, 18 or 19, falling in love with painting as being like the most like wonderful period of my life. But fast forward 10 years, and I was starting to get a little bitter, kind of feeling like, well, why aren't all these things happening for me? Why aren't I getting all these joys that I expected? And then another 10 years, and my life kind of derailed, and I was bitter. I was angry. I wanted something. I didn't even know what it was. And that's the second time that drawing and stories saved my life. I found a community of people who wanted to share their stories and listen to mine, and hearing other people's stories, seeing other people's art, seeing their like reflection on their lives, sort of put me on a different road. And so a quote that I'd like to read about that sort of second time of discovering, the power of drawing or art more generally, is a James Baldwin quote. And it's from a Life magazine article, an interview. "You think that your pain and all your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me the most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive." And I think that I had like not been letting myself listen or see the artwork that other people were making. And for whatever miracle, I let that in. And it introduced me to stories, which introduced me to comics, which is something I never did. So I had this second moment of falling in love with art and with drawing when I fell in love with comics and telling stories that way. And I'm so grateful that I got to live long enough to have that like second experience with drawing. And it's not an exaggeration to say that did save my life. And so I wrote a graphic memoir, and and then I got really exhausted of like examining my own life, and I did not want to do that anymore. And then I started doing graphic journalism and interviewing people, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I get to like hear other people's stories. And that was truly, truly wonderful. But then kind of emotionally draining. And I got to a point where I sort of needed a break from this like intensity. So I thought, oh, fiction will be this like total relief. And I quickly found that like writing fiction is almost like it's just like delving into the emotional turmoil is just there's no barriers, it's just right there. And I keep accidentally sort of like finding myself in this emotional place. For example, that part that I read where Joel is with his stepfather's talking to him so cruelly. And somebody asked, so an early reader was like, well, why, like, where did that come from? Like, why is that character like that? And at first, it just took me a second. I realized, like, oh, that's my inner dialogue. That's my self-talk. Like, that's me talking to myself. There's no escape. There's no escape from that self-reflection, really. And you know, like as an artist, you know, we sort of like we create, we take in art, and then the third time, you know, that's almost the full thing for me. But the third time drawing saved my life was I was very lucky to sort of fall into teaching workshops to people who don't draw, who don't write, who don't think they have a story to tell, and doing that with somebody when they suddenly the light goes on and they're like, oh, I can draw, I do have a story to tell. Every time that happens, I'm just like reminded of how lucky I am to have this job, to have this life, to have been able to fall in love with art, not just once, but twice. And then again with workshops, like a third time. And so that's 3 times that drawing saved my life. And it feels like this kind of a loop from like, you know, the self-reflection, the creation, and then the like listening and hearing somebody else's story, and then the inspiration to like share that and make new work, which brings me back to being excited to make work. So I don't know if I'll need my life to be saved a 4th time, but maybe I'll come back. I'll be invited back if it does happen, and I can tell you. So that's all I wanted to talk about. But I do have a question. Has anybody drawn anything? Yeah, because you get a prize.
Ooh.
First of all, you get a sticker.
Good.
Oh, sticker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Random.
Yeah.
You draw anything? Okay, sweet. And then I'm gonna ask about the drawings after.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And would you like a sticker? Drawing. That's okay. So we have time for questions, I think, but what I first would like to ask is, first of all, is there anybody who has a drawing they'd like to share? And secondly, does anyone have a story about a time that like drawing, art, music saved your life or had a positive effect? We don't need to be too dramatic. Yeah, what's your drawing, Nicholas?
Just an abstract one, but abstract has always been my way of escaping kind of reality, just into my mind and just letting it flow. And whether I'm grieving or I'm contemplating or ruminating, sometimes just getting the flow going through my brain out to a piece of paper really helps.
Yeah, that's amazing. Can I see it?
Sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. Anybody else?
Gord.
WL?
Yeah. I have a drawing of what I consider a little island called Beauséjour.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued because I speak a bit of French. I sometimes think I speak French, but anyway, Beauséjour, and I thought like, beau, obviously we know what beau is. Then séjour, like, is that like a welcoming place or something like well, I realized I don't know what Beauséjour really means.
Yeah.
So anyway, I made this little island that's called Beauséjour, and then a little like question mark with I'm thinking, what is Beauséjour?
I've got to say that that's the perfect definition of Beauséjour.
So there, and that's the picture of
Oh,
a little island, because you know, like I can picture that on the Bay of Fundy, a little island that just
totally
disappears under the under like the 50-foot tidal influx and influx. So.
Yeah. There. Helen, I see you maybe have a drawing.
I do. I draw a lot just doodling. Like frankly, if I'm in a meeting, like a Zoom meeting, I'm drawing the whole time while I'm supposedly listening to what people are saying. And enjoy it. So I drew a picture of you,
Oh, I love it.
which isn't, I mean, it doesn't really look like you, but I enjoy it. And in answer to your other question about a moment where
Yeah.
art or music has sort of saved your life, I don't think it's exactly like that, but I can recall precise moments. For example, like I'm a musician, I'm a singer, and I can recall precise moments where I've been performing and I feel like I'm floating, like I
Yeah.
don't feel like I'm doing anything.
Yeah.
I can't even feel my physical act of singing. It's just like I'm floating.
You're connected to.
Yeah. So maybe that's connected to what you said. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sure.
Yeah. No pressure.
I drew my dog, Thor,
Oh,
first.
because that's something you love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's something I love. Yeah, that's
Can I see?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
And then I drew a
I love
flower.
Thor too. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah, similar to what Helen said about music. I'm a musician, and I think I prefer to play with other people, as opposed to solo, and connecting without words in a weird, unspoken kind of
Yeah.
way. It's so magical to me, and communicating to an audience without words is really makes me feel powerful, and like there's something mystical out there.
Can you imagine your life without that?
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kelly, am I assuming something?
I too have a drawing, and there was a lot of listening to birds and talking about birds yesterday, and there's also a lot of warnings of bad weather across the country. So I have a bird that can walk with very long legs above the floodwaters or through the floodwaters,
Okay, yeah.
but not drown.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have a drawing experience or a musical experience?
Oh, I both visual artist and a musician, and this little bird does look like one of the like it's not. I've never met this bird before,
Yeah.
but it certainly looks like a bird that could live in the worlds that I have painted and drawn.
Right.
drawn
You
in.
create worlds.
Yes, I create
You're-
worlds, and this little bird would be there.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but do you remember the first time you like created like an imaginary world as art, or as just like as a child?
I wrote a musical when I was in about grade 4.
Yeah.
And it had a whole bunch of these kinds of characters in it. And then I made all my neighbors learn the songs. Try and recreate this world. But it is a similar world still. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jasper, you're in charge now.
Tells us what to do.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Jon?
Yeah. Why does everyone ignore the monsters?
Well, I don't know if you ignore monsters, but if you do, why? Like, why do we all ignore the monsters? Like, we're essentially ignoring climate change. Like, we're ignoring the opioid crisis. Like, even if you have to ignore these things, because you can't be 100% aware of the monstrous things in the world and continue to like take care of your kids, take care of your family, be a good friend, be a good neighbor. There's a moment where you have to like turn it off, your awareness, right?
Right.
That's what's happening in Beauséjour. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, Nicholas.
Do you speak or is there a metaphor for life for you?
A metaphor for life?
Yeah.
In
In how you present your art?
That's a really interesting question.
You get what I'm saying?
I think so.
Like is this like is it more than surface? Obviously, there's a lot more to the depth of like what's going on and
Well, it's particularly in Beauséjour. Like one of the metaphors that interested me as I was writing was that, you know, Joel's a 12-year-old boy and he's like an observer, and he's sort of like under the influence of his parents. And to me, that was his childhood experience is actually a metaphor for what it's like to be an adult, like now. right? Like we're observers, we're under the influence of the world, and we have so little agency, like children. So that was one of the metaphors in Nowhere that interested me. But absolutely, I feel like the entire book like is where does like there's like a you can enjoy it as a little story about monsters, and but you can definitely go deeper.
Yes. I'm wondering about the cube. Because I mean, I know of the physical existence and presence of the cube in, you know, the real world of Sackville and so on. So whether that represents something or it's just the cube that's in Sackville. Yeah.
Right. Well, of course, you know, I was thinking the other night of just like, you know, of course, all like the characters, you know, like there's people that have influenced the different characters, but of course they're fictional, right? And so there's a structure that's influenced the cube, but of course the cube is fictional. So in my town of Sackville, as opposed to Beauséjour, there is, and mysteriously this giant cube arrived very quickly in the industrial park, and it's about 17 stories high, and it's pure white. And it just stands there on the edge of town, kind of looming. And when it arrived, like nobody really knew what it was for. Like there wasn't a big like press release about it, and rumors kind of spread as to like what it was for, but it's just there. And I think people often can feel stuck anywhere they live, but in a small town, you particularly can feel stuck. I was feeling stuck, and I was feeling uncreative, and I went for a walk with my dog, and I was looking at this giant cube, and I thought, well, I'm here for a while. What do I have? I have this cube, my dog, like my kids, and my friends. And what kind of story can I tell? So from that moment on, the cube for me ceased to be this real thing in Sackville and became the cube in Beauséjour. But I feel like actually there's been a few books that I've read recently. The Witch of Willow Sound is one, where this giant rock is like hanging over this town, and I think there's a few other books where like something is looming, and we're experiencing that, and the cube is looming over this town with a very little explanation, because I feel as a human on Earth is that I don't get a lot of answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the cube is like sort of like a giant it's like a giant question mark.
Yeah.
Like a cubular question mark on the edge of town, you know? And blank, like white and like so strange.
Yeah.
Like
So if you
really, really strange.
So if you live in the Maritimes, you know about the cube. It is relatively new, and as I travel across the country, you know, people don't know about our cube. So it's been really fun because like people will read the book and just like, oh, it's just this like imaginary cube, but there is a real like parallel. Yeah. And apparently in Scandinavia, a friend sent me a picture of so our cube is like just this pure white box, and in Scandinavia there's another cube and it's black. And I need to go and see it. And in Sackville, like everyone is kind of in love with the cube, so it feels like this cult of like cube worshipping mercy people. Yeah.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the animation or realization of the white cube in Sackville and the black cube in Scandinavia, sort of like
They're talking to each other,
encountering each.
Yeah.
they're connected, I'm sure.
You're spreading the word of the cube across Canada.
Exactly. Yeah, we're all under the influence.
Do we have any other questions for Jon here?
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming here, Jon. Delightful to have you. And he'll be sticking around for a little while to sign some books, to chat. So if you think of other questions, just go bother him at the table over there.
Thanks, everyone. Is it off now? Very much. I was very nervous.